Hey, entrepreneurs, executives, and spammers. We started the Pilot House email and customer retention team to crush targets. And in our fourth year, we are the best customer retention team in the Roman character set. We use campaigns to fire up the addresses you spent so much money to acquire and build effective automations that keep your engagement window fat and drive value that you can amortize over years. The cheapest customer is the customer you already have, and the most effective ad funnels go to high-intent audience. Come to pilothouse.co, fill out the lead form, and ask to speak with me directly. I'll give you a free audit. Back to the show.
In the inbox late night, glowing screen, see the light. Email, everything feels alright.
These tools that email people who haven't given explicit permission. We'll give it a try. It's like, whoa. This whole try anything once, slow down. These are dangerous tools that can negatively affect your brand equity. Your email channel is gold. That's your list. That's your customers. Why would you mess with that? I see this all the time. You've got your native list, and then you've got the list from these companies. After a year, their list is 50% larger than your native list. And these addresses, they hit spam at a higher rate. And they spend at a way lower rate because all they did was visit your site. It's the world's best email retention podcast. And I'm your host, Jordan Gordon. We are a member of the DTC network of podcasts and the philosophical home of the Pilot House email and customer retention team. If you want to make the sweet nectar of low-cost revenue a large part of your digital ecosystem, then follow us on your favorite podcast app today. This time, we're going to have our second discussion about these tools that email people who haven't given explicit permission. I discussed this earlier in another podcast episode. You can go back and find it. In that first discussion of these tools, I'd been working with them with clients for a year or so, however long, and I'd seen kind of what works and what doesn't at that point, and I tried to be very journalistic and show both sides of the discussion. I just wanted to be fair and just give a message, right? Now I want to tell you what I think, okay? And be less journalistic. Show less, but also, how about this? But how about this side of the story? No. Tell you what I think about these companies that some people use that email people who have not given permission. By the way, how do they do that? Somewhere in the interwebs, someone has clicked something without knowing it that says, I accept email from this brand or its partners, its trusted partners, and then the device is fingerprinted at that moment. And then whenever you go onto a website that is using this service, by the way, it's not even this service. There's data brokers that sell these addresses all over the place. So, your address is out there for that. You've said yes, and so someone pays this data broker for that permission, and suddenly you're just getting, you show up on a site, and you just start getting an email. You get a welcome email. You didn't even fill out a lead form. You get a welcome email. When 10-15 years ago, when Castle was big as a follow-up to Can Spam, I did a lot of work making sure that permission was very, very, very carefully followed. So first of all, I'll just say, wow, what a change 10 or 15 years will make, where now people treat permission like trash, right? There were huge projects involved to make sure everything was scrubbed. Then they came out with the GPR whatever in the EU. I always forget the acronym. And everyone was dotting every I, crossing every T. I remember at one point I was involved in a CRTC filing. Everyone took this thing so seriously. And after doing all that work and really understanding the legislation, pouring just hours and hours of my life into it, to see people treating permission so poorly. First of all, I'll just say my biased opinion, that sucks, right? But don't worry, we don't have to worry about my biases. We're going to talk through what really happens in your system, and you're going to understand what happens to your Klaviyo account specifically, but any other account you're using when you use these services that email people who have never given permission, okay? Also, just a thought. This is just a thought of mine. Why is this? Why is it that we've got this happening out there in the SaaS space? Before it would have been unheard of. Well, you know what? Times change, societal values change, national and state leadership priorities change. So after, Internet 1.0 launched and we had just the explosion, the way that the internet changed all of our lives, where you now have all of human knowledge in your back pocket at all times. I know for certain email was seen at the state level as something to encourage. Email was important. It was a communication model that was allowing the economies in which the internet was flourishing. It was allowing those economies to influence other economies in the world. It was looked on as a positive asset, right? You know what? It's a different time now. And one of the interesting things about email is that it's really hard to stop email, right? You can control communications in Facebook. You can control communications in all kinds of different messengers because it's centralized, right? Email is a decentralized communication protocol, right? Famously, like in the Iraq War, I think it was the first one, they tried to take out email to make sure that there was no communications, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't take out email. Email is just unstoppable because it just reroutes because of how routing tables work. By the way, anybody feel free to go check out how TCP/IP works. Of course, SMTP email sits on top of TCP/IP. The gods of the internet gave us, just an amazing gift when they gave us the internet and email as part of that, as part of the Web 1.0 set of protocols. And so now, as states are, this is my thinking, as states are trying to be a little more cautious about communications, a little bit more control, a little bit more insight into how people are communicating. This is becoming a slightly less friendly world than it was when I was a young man just getting involved in the internet. Yeah, maybe email isn't seen as this shining asset that should be protected. Maybe it's just seen as like, hey, here's this thing. And by the way, it can be used to, political movements that we aren't friendly to can kind of organize around this communication protocol. So, does that mean they're doing anything against email? Not really. But does that mean that they might just not be doing all this stuff to protect email and save it and make it clean and awesome? Yeah, it's probably just not a priority. It's probably just not a priority. I'm certain at the state level, when you look in, US, Canada, EU, at the state level, I don't see this commitment to a clean email channel that I saw when I was younger, right? It's just a different time. Well, that actually means keeping it clean is up to us. Now it's just a free protocol, right? And people aren't really clearly people are not enforcing all the regulations that came in so many years ago that I worked to secure businesses on. Or these companies that email people who have never given permission would be sued. They'd be out of business. So clearly it's just a different time, and state actors have different priorities, and no longer is email this shining house in the hill that we must protect. I mean, it's up to you and me. Okay, that's just my thought. Like, why is this even happening? Why is this being allowed to happen? That's my thought, right? Just no one's protecting email at the state level like they used to. Okay, well, I gave this nice, friendly discussion about these companies that email people who've never given permission. And since then, I've gone about my day-to-day, and since then, these tools have still not been perfect. I've still been unhappy in lots of cases. And then I had two huge inboxing problems with clients who were using these tools. By the way, one of them came to us with the tool, and the other one, we recommended not to use the tool, but they wanted to give it a try. It's the kind of client who just wants to give stuff a try. Hey, we'll give it a try. It's like, whoa. Don't just, this whole like try anything once, slow down. These are dangerous tools that can negatively affect your brand equity if they ruin your email channel, right? Your email channel is gold. That's your list. That's your customers. Why would you mess with that? So two huge inboxing problems, right? Now, for a while, there was one of these major companies, and at first it was just mayhem when they got involved with the brand, and we had to do all this work, right? Just figuring out what's going on. And then over time, you know what? That company to my mind, things got better. So they probably just got good account teams. Probably they hired people fresh out of college who had no idea what they're doing with email. Year one with email. Let's use this tool that destroys people's sending reputations, right? They probably got a good account teams and things got better. But now there's all these competitors. Now there's a bunch of these. Now there's this race to the bottom to see who can ruin email faster, right? So it's time for me to raise my hand and tell you guys about this. I want to discuss something that I brought up on the previous video, a very important point on the previous video about whether or not these companies that send emails to people who've never given permission, if we should talk about, do they actually make you money? Well, I want you to understand this. If I could give you anything from the last episode, if you can go back and find it, whatever, if I can convey anything from the last episode is how ephemeral the revenue that they attribute for you is. So let's understand this. Okay, let's understand how this works. Someone hits your site. Their device has been fingerprinted. This company's got JavaScript or whatever running on your site in the session and goes, oh, I recognize this. This is one of ours, okay? That's when they say it's ours. Someone who has agreed and been fingerprinted hits your site. Now, subsequently, after that address hits your site, many, and the vast majority who ever purchase, fill out the pop-up. So I come to the site, I get cookied, or sorry, I get tracked by this company. They say that's ours. And then 5 seconds later, I fill out the form, I get my coupon, I spend, I'm a first-time buyer, I'm in the system. They say, oh, that was ours. Even though that user hit the site and filled out your form. I call that a native subscriber. If someone fills out the pop-up, if you're using Klaviyo and someone fills out the Klaviyo pop-up, my term for that is native subscriber. Okay? That's a native subscriber. And this company is claiming the revenue. And by the way, the more of these data aggregators who collect this information and lease it out to these companies, the more addresses they collect, the larger share of your revenue these companies are going to say is theirs. Oh, that was mine. Oh, that was mine. Oh, that was mine. Even though the person came and filled out the form and bought with the coupon, right? So now it's up to you. I mean, if you're not with the Pilot House email and retention team, it's up to you to go in and do all the weird segmented reporting to find out what portion of their sales were from people who have not filled out the lead form, right? And I'll tell you right now, skip to the end. Spoiler alert. It's hardly anything. Hardly anything is coming from people who didn't fill out the lead form. You feel free to go in and do the segmentation yourself. You just find people who are on the list, who filled out the lead form, people who are on their list, the whatever list, their list, who didn't fill out the lead form. You just make the segmentation. Do the last 6 months. Everyone created in the last 6 months, something like that. And you're going to see what portion, and then of course people who aren't on their list, and you're going to see what portion of your overall buyers are on their list and haven't filled out the lead form. Minuscule. Of course, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time if you're using these tools. I can't be more clear about it. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your money. Okay, the segmentation to work with them is crazy too. Again, you can get a good account team. I will admit that. And they set it up so it doesn't completely blow up your sending reputation for a while. But let's keep in mind, I see this all the time. It's like you've got your regular list, your native list, and then you've got the list from these companies that send emails to people who've never given permission. And because they're harvesting off of visits, not of form fills, their list grows so fast. And so then after 6 months, it's like their list is the same size as your native list. After a year, their list is like 50% larger than your native list. And these addresses, I'll tell you right now, they hit spam, no surprise, at a higher rate. And they spend, no surprise, at a way lower rate because all they did was visit your site. And then they're in your segmentation. They're just in your campaigns. You're filling your campaigns with addresses that are unlikely to drive traffic. Our segmentation, of course, focuses on addresses that are likely to drive traffic and spend. And you're filling your list with people who are likely to click spam. It's garbage. So then this is up to you now. You have to create segmentation that pulls these addresses out of your business. And of course, you're not going to see that account team do that for you because even if they know it's the right thing to do, they're going to say, oh, our addresses are gold. That's what they're going to say. They can't say their addresses are crap or you're going to get rid of the service. So they turn a blind eye because it just sits in your system and the addresses rot and get nasty and it grows as a share of your overall email system until finally Gmail and Yahoo just kick you out and they're done with you, right? That's what and the account teams, they just let it happen because they can't admit to you on a call that their addresses are bad. Okay? Think about that. Think about incentives and what they're incentivized to say to you. When I'm telling you, and you know very well, that people who do not give permission, when you just start emailing someone from out of the blue and they never gave permission, are they more likely to click spam or not? And if you went through 2024 and you listened to the World's Best Email Retention podcast, you know how important spam rate is for Yahoo and Gmail. Very important. Okay? So, crazy segmentation. It's up to you. You got to figure it out. Good luck, right? If you do want these things to work, I mean, if you're listening to this and you're like, I still think I'm going to give it a try. Well, I want to equip you as best I can. My podcast is here to bring as much good as I can to the world of email. So look, constrain it to the first welcome email, only the first welcome email, and like cart and checkout abandonment. Maybe browse abandonment. And no one in campaigns, unless they've like clicked in the last 90 days or something really, really, really strict like that, maybe even the last 60 days, right? If there's no click, do not message them in campaigns. Of course, if they've purchased, but if they've purchased, they're now in your buyer list. They're one of your customers. You have implied consent. If they've purchased, you can treat them like a normal address. If they haven't purchased, if you don't see like a click in a very recent period of time, do not email them with campaigns, right? Because they're likely to click spam because they never gave you permission. You're just emailing them out of the blue. Who likes that? Nobody wants emails from someone they never gave permission to. And email is set up to be permissive. This is not how email is supposed to work. Now, and you know what? Okay, whatever. Dude, I jaywalk. The problem is there's bodies all over the place. People who just, suddenly their inboxing is toast. Let's talk about a couple of examples. These two examples I just had where I was like, you know what? Enough. I'm going to the World's Best Email Retention podcast and I'm telling the world what's going on here. Okay? So, one of these companies that sends email to people who've never, ever given permission, we got someone who came in. This was the worst audit I've ever had. It was the worst audit I've ever done. I couldn't believe how just dead this account was. And of course, all the things that we've discussed were happening. There was some false attribution. They thought things were happening, but actually nothing was happening, right? And I'd audited them before and past, and and it was a bad audit before, but it was actually to see it even worse. This was like a really, 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 really bad audit. And you know what? They're with us now, and we're saving them. We're going to save their Q4. We're cleaning all this up. But the account team from this company had said, you shouldn't have a Klaviyo pop-up. Just use our addresses. What? Hold on. Don't allow any native prospect addresses in. Only allow in addresses who have purchased and get implied consent, which are fine, or who have never given permission. Like only. We don't want to email a prospect unless it's someone who never gave us permission. Just imagine how in the dark that account team must be. Because I can understand they're like, hey, we can't tell people our addresses are garbage, so we're not going to tell them to do this or that. And that's like, so they don't say something they should. But to actually say, don't have a pop-up on Klaviyo, don't collect email addresses, right? I mean, I just thought about this now. That makes it difficult to measure which people came through, filled out the lead form, and which did not. And I discussed this before. Maybe these guys are listening to the World's Best Email Retention podcast. So let me repeat this because I'm just thinking of this now. I told you the way to find out if you're making any money off this, by the way, you're not, is by measuring people who are on their list, who have filled out the lead form, who are on their list, who have not filled out the lead form, and who are not on their list, and measure how many purchases they've made for all addresses that have joined in the last 6 months or something like that. And you'll see how small the amount of business it is, right? For people who are on their list and have not filled out the lead form. If there's no lead form, you can't do that analysis. So maybe this is an underhanded way of making it difficult to actually confirm how little benefit you get from these fly-by-night companies. Maybe, I don't know. Okay? But you know what? We should be charitable. This is important. We should be charitable. I don't know the person who made that recommendation. So if to be as charitable as possible, that person is just completely in the dark and has no idea how email works, and you are trusting them with your system. Okay? Look at this other example. Okay? Company signs up, and suddenly, again, just like, hey, deliverability in the can, revenue drops, and we look, and I pull all the spam complaints, segmented spam complaints. Say, look, here's people who are on the list who've clicked spam, people who are not on the list who've clicked spam. I did the exact same segmentation, but rather than looking at orders, I looked at spam complaints and unsubscribes, right? And sent that through to the client and to the account team and said, clearly, and of course, it was like 5x more spam complaints from people on the list who've not filled out the form. Of course, massive spam complaints. They were driving the vast majority of spam complaints on the account. And everything went into the tank. And what did the account teams do? They pushed back. Hey, no, we need to really break this up and crack it open. And they wanted me to spend more of my time so they could push back and make it look like, and they said, you should leave our product on. This isn't us. You should leave our product on. Okay, come on. The email professionals, if we'll call them that, who work at these companies, know very well their systems drive more spam complaints than the native addresses. They know very well. So to say to a client, going into Q4, no, you should leave our system on. Does that account team care about that client? No. Does that account team care if that client has a successful Q4? No, they don't. Do not use these companies. Don't. Okay. What's at stake beyond just your business? Email as a whole. Okay? People use email because they enjoy it. It's convenient. Most people check their email before kissing their significant other in the morning, whether it's their boyfriend, girlfriend, or dog, right? And why all this like tightness and spam, this inboxing tightness from Gmail and Yahoo? Well, they want people to enjoy their inbox. So they use it. So then they can sell advertising and put it into their AI systems and whatever they're doing with it, right? The only thing I see out in the email world right now that actually risks the email ecosystem are these companies. Because if they become so prolific, people are going to go, my inbox is garbage. What is this? This is nasty. And they're going to go and just start using, I'm going to be WhatsApp only, or I'm going to be Telegram only, or something like that, right? This is a risk to email. These companies risk making email an old, irrelevant channel. I'm concerned about that. I run the world's best email retention podcast. You know what I mean? So I notice this when I have a friend contact me and say, I'm not using email anymore. I had a friend contact me to say this. He just told me, he's a good buddy of mine. He just told me, I emailed me, said, I'm not using email anymore. This is like a technician. This is a very smart, technically intelligent person who I know, who made the decision to no longer use email as a channel because of this stuff. And I have to message him through Telegram. Okay, well, if that's happened to him, it's happening to other people. So if you use these tools, if you like email and you like making money from email and you're using these tools, understand you are contributing to something that could cause the channel to go away if iterated enough over enough time. And there goes your email channel. So if you want to do the right thing, not just for your business, but for the email ecosystem as a whole, drop these businesses. Okay, what else we got here? Ticking time bomb. Hey, if you set it up and it is working, just wait, right? Eventually, you're going to get enough addresses in there. The scale's going to get so big that it blows something up, right? Your only saving grace is if you really tightly segment, right? Really tightly segment. But then what are you getting out of it? You're just getting a handful of addresses because you segmented it so hard, right? I'm telling you, you're going to run the analysis and be like, oh, half a dozen people purchased. Oh, well, good thing I had this system that is a ticking time bomb. If you have questions about this, you feel free to come to pallethouse.co, fill out the lead form. I will speak to you directly. I will look at your account. I will tell you what's going on. If you're worried that these companies are going to tank you before Q4. If you want to talk about it, I will talk about it with you all day. And just final thought on this. You could beat the results of those companies. You could make just as much money for yourself as those companies add by just listening to the World's Best Email Retention Podcast. This isn't just a quip. Go back, listen to the early episodes, listen to this podcast. You're going to get enough ideas to replace the ephemeral, what's the revenue that these companies are bringing. Whatever few dollars you actually make off them, you're going to replace that by just listening to the World's Best Email Retention Podcast and getting good ideas and putting those good ideas into your retention ecosystem. Okay? So go listen to the pod from the first episode. And if you got questions, fill out the lead form. And closing thought, do not use these companies. Thank you, entrepreneurs, executives, and spammers, and webmasters. Have fun spamming.
In the inbox late night, glowing screen, see the light. Email, everything feels alright.
Hey, entrepreneurs and spammers. Remember, you can't scale without email, and the cheapest customer to acquire is the customer you already have. So please subscribe to the World's Best Email and Retention Podcast and learn how to make low-cost revenue a big part of your digital ecosystem.